Hello drummer friends. If you've been following along with these videos over the last few sessions, you know that we've been getting into jazz comping, which is short for jazz accompanying. And so this is something that happens in playing a jazz song with your friends, and you're trying to create some sort of a dialogue while keeping good time. And some examples of what that might sound like include this. So what I'm doing is I have a steady repetitive beat going on with my ride cymbal and my hi-hat, and I was going a little bit more advanced that time in creating a dialogue not only with my snare drum, a little bit of chatter, ba 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 doo dot, but also involving my bass drum as well, which is going to be a little bit more advanced, and that's something we haven't covered yet. So don't worry if you're looking at that and hearing it's like, I haven't done that before. It's okay because you haven't. So taking that concept in mind, and hopefully by now you've spent a little bit of time playing along with Jimmy Cobb on the track from Kind of Blue, Freddie Freeloader, and listen to the way that he does that and interacts with some of the other rhythms and melodies that are coming from the rest of the band. So this shouldn't be totally devoid of context. You should spend a bunch of time listening and listening and listening, and then playing some time along with that, and then going through those four different comping exercises that we had, which we're going to touch base on today. But by this point, hopefully you're fairly comfortable with being able to play those comping rhythms on the snare drum while keeping steady time on your ride cymbal, as well as hi-hat on 2 and 4, and hopefully also keeping feathering 4 on the floor on your bass drum. What we're going to do today is do a little bit more just straight up context. A very common idea and conversational piece that happens in jazz and a lot of music is this idea of trading. And so this might mean that the drums are keeping steady time for, say, 4 bars, and then playing their own melodies as part of a solo for 4 bars. That's a common practice that's called trading 4s, trading 4-bar phrases. And so we can do that just with all the information that we have, and not have to worry about putting in any new information at this point. So an example of taking our first comping rhythm, let's review that really quick. So we had snare drum on 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Let's play that together. Warm that up along with ride cymbal, dang, dang, ga-dang, dang, ga-dang, hi-hat on 2 and 4, and hopefully also bass drum on all 4 beats. I'm just going to start playing. Join in when you're comfortable. 1, 2, 3, and. Well, gotta turn the snare drum on. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and. All right, hopefully, that should be comfortable by this point. What we're going to do, just to make the easiest transition to playing a melody, is we're just going to stop the ride cymbal, we're going to stop the bass drum, and we're going to continue that comping rhythm on the snare drum. So it's just going to feature it a little bit more. So we're going to play 4 bars of that same thing we were just doing, 1 and 2, and 2 and 2, and 3 and 2, and 4 and 2, and then just stop your ride cymbal. Keep everything else going. You can stop your bass drum if you need to, and it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, and. Is that clear how the steady thread through all of that is your comping rhythm on the snare drum as well as the hi-hat on 2 and 4? And those, it gives you a melody that you're playing, and it gives you structure, repeating, backbeat on the hi-hat, which is, kind of the foundation of a lot of this jazz feel. So that you're never going to lose the time. As long as you're comfortable doing all those things, in 4-limb coordination, and then actually leaving 2 limbs out and dropping it down, just have 2-limb coordination. Okay, let's try that. If you're having trouble with the idiom on its own, playing the comping, then pause and spend some time practicing that. Otherwise, let's see if we can do this together. So 4 bars of time with the comping, and 4 bars where we just stop playing our ride cymbal and our bass drum and keep the other 2 limbs going. Let's try that. 1, 2, ready, time. Okay, that functions in the same way that we would have in a more advanced style of just trading 4s. And we're playing actually the same idea throughout. So that's not necessarily the most musical endpoint that we're looking for, but this is an exercise and we're taking ourselves through kind of the real world experience of trading ideas with ourselves. And in this case, we don't have to actually change the idea up too much. Let's try the same thing with now our second idea, which, let's see if I look at my notes here, was the and of 1 and and of 2. So the phrase is just this. I'm going to start playing, join in, and review this comping with me. 1, 2, 3, and... So you probably know what's going to come up next. We're just going to trade with that same time we were playing and then leaving out the ride cymbal and bass drum and continue that idiom on the snare drum as now more of a melodic solo with the hi-hat on 2 and 4. So listen to me do it once or just try it with me. 1, 2, time, first. All right, so we have a nice amount of context there going back and forth between playing steady time and playing a solo idea. And so that would be the idea, you're jamming along, maybe one of the horn players or vocalists is improvising a solo for 4 bars, and then you get to trade with them. So now we're gonna try something where we take those ideas just on the snare drum, still staying on one surface, but we're going to create a little bit more variety. And so instead of just playing our 4 bars of the same idea, I want us to play around with the idea of having 1 bar of one and then maybe going on to the other idea. So this is going to be a little bit tricky. So for the 4 bars of time, I'm going to not comp. So I'm just going to kind of let us think about what our combinations are going to be. So first off, I'm going to script what I'm going to do. Instead of doing all 4 bars of, we'll call that idea number 1, and then having 4 bars straight of idea number 2. 1, 2. I'm going to go ahead and play, let's see, 2 bars of idea number 1 and then 2 bars of idea number 2. So just the idea on its own becomes this new phrase like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully that makes sense what I was doing there. Try that same format with me, and then you're going to get to come up with your own. Okay, so we think of this as, actually, let's, instead of number 1 and number 2, let's say idea A and idea B. So this gets into some different types of musical phrasing that we're going to talk about later. So A, B, B is the pattern we're doing right now. All right, so try this with me. 4 bars of time. Don't worry about comping. If you can do that, that's totally fine. Or you can add in cross stick on beat 4 like we had on some of those things. You can do your bongo beat, whatever you like, but feel free just to let your snare drum be ready and waiting to play the solo ideas. So we're going to have A, B, B as our phrase contrasting with 4 bars of time. Let's try this. 1, time first. 1, 2, 3, and... Okay, so the reason that we do that is because we're trying to think of creating a musical conversation, not only with the other people we're playing with and having 4 bars of time and 4 bars of solo, but we want to create a little bit more variety in our statements that we're putting out there. So that would be the same sort of thing. We wouldn't say the same thing, 4 ideas in a row. We might develop it a little bit or create some contrast, all right? So that's our, it's like, I'm going to the store today. Yes, I'm going to the store today. I'm gonna get some bagels, and I'm gonna get 12 bagels. That would be maybe a little bit more variety than we're looking for in our conversation, but it creates a little bit of a thread of a story, and storytelling is what we're trying to put here in a kind of abstract rhythmic concept, and that's what we do. It's a way that we can think about this. All right, so now what I'd like you to do is you're gonna get to come up with a different arrangement of those 2 ideas. Honestly, we don't have a whole lot of options because we have the limitation of 4 bars. You can only use those, combinations of those 2 different phrases. So you're going to probably come up with something that I have in my mind. So it's going to be familiar. And as a listener, all of you out there, we're familiar with these ideas. And so if anybody who's watching this video were to record one and show it to anybody else who's familiar with this material, it's going to be resonating as familiar vocabulary. Same thing about conversation about going to the store and getting bagels. It's something that most of us are probably familiar with. All right, so let's try this. So I'm just going to play time, and when it gets to the solo idea, I'm going to keep my hi-hat going, but I want you to come up with some different combination using the A phrase and B phrase that isn't A, B, B. So just to throw some ideas, you could go A, B, 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 A, anything like that. There's a few different options. So try that. I'm just going to help keep time, and I'm going to listen and provide support. Here we go. So you come up with your own idea in the time. You come up with your own idea, in the fill part. 1, 2, time first. The same phrase after. Same thing. Okay, how did that go? From my end, it sounded fantastic. The idea there, I was kind of trying to yell out over the playing, is that once you play that 4-bar phrase, whatever it was, maybe you did B, A, B, do the same thing again the next time. Get it so that becomes your bigger, conversational statement. You want to be able to do those 4-bar phrases and have them as comfortable, and then, you know, try a different one. Okay? So that's all that we're going to do for right now. You can spend some time rearranging those 2 ideas to your heart's content, and that's going to give you a lot of different ways of, you know, rephrasing the same sort of vocabulary. And that's important. That's the reason that we can hear you know, stories or speeches read by different people, because they always bring something different to it. That's the idea. We can present it in the way that a great orator was playing it before, or maybe if we learned a classical piece, we can present it in the way that Glenn Gould, you know, played Bach on the piano. But we can also put it together in a way that's slightly different. And so that's rearranging material, changing the phrasing a little bit. We haven't really done anything incorporating our accents or orchestration yet, and so that's something that's going to come later as well. All right, so have fun practicing those 2 ideas, working on back and forth between your comping and your soloing ideas, and we'll see you next time for some more. Thanks.